Friday, March 7th, 2025, and we are here at Enchanted Rock State Natural Area to diagnose the terrain laid down by the true ancients, advanced races who built the continents in their entirety. Let's have a look at this dome. This is not the specific dome called Enchanted Rock, which is to our left. This is a smaller dome, and you can see the stacking of the megaliths on top of the dome. So this is supposed to be igneous granite, and yet somehow natural igneous granite stacked itself, made vertical-sided megaliths. Oh, that's amazing. This is called exfoliation by academic geology. They say these megaliths are exfoliating, but we can see that that's not true. It's a different type of granite, first of all, and it's vertical-sided, and it is clearly stacked. It's clearly not exfoliating. It was never, these megaliths were never part of this dome. It's obvious. They're stacked, and they slowly slide down, as presumably they were meant to slide down over time by the true ancients who came back 50,000, 100,000, who knows how many thousands of years ago, after their continents were built, and they built this late stage continent building project, 50 square miles of what we call granite, but what they knew was a certain magic recipe of pink crystalline concrete. So all of this is concrete, and we call it granite because we have no other way to think about it. So we're going to talk about the geological veil over our eyes in this video. Meanwhile, to our left, this is where we stopped the last video, part 3. This is going to be part 4. And so this is the main dome, and most of the megaliths have slid off of this dome. There are a few remaining. You can see these two here. You can see that the ancients, the true ancients who built the continents and came back to build this late stage terraforming project, you can see how they made the tops of their megaliths stronger, thicker, more resistant to erosion. So these might be exactly where they were placed, or they might have slid a little ways down. But there are a lot of megaliths that are in the valley there, and little by little they tumble down and erode. Megaliths were just sitting on the dome like that, and then over time slid down. So the dome is virtually bare now, this large dome called Enchanted Rock, although there are a few remnants. So we're going to go explore in that little crevice there, and we're going to look at the structuring of these granite megaliths, so-called natural granite megaliths. Everywhere we look, we see the straight line construction and the regular sided construction of these megaliths. You can see this regular interior. We are told that these lines represent cracks or fractures, but the lines are regular, and the interior faces of the sections, when they are not flush, this is a perfect example, show us the regular quality of the building, the regular quality of the sections, right? Let's get closer. Let's really look at it, because the geologists haven't been looking. Let's look at this side right here. Okay? You can see this lip. I always see this, but I rarely comment on it. This very, very conscious lip, which would not happen if this were a crack or a fracture. And combined with the regular sided quality of this section of crystalline concrete, as well as the virtually straight construction, right? So we see the straightness of that. Is that fair? And then back here too, straight again. They're building in triangles here, which is smart building. Different sized and different shaped sections, right? Some curving. That's a gentle curve right there. This is asymmetrical construction. perfect example of asymmetrical construction. Triangular building, really large sections. Here's another straight line that just demarcates the joining of two sections, not the fracturing or breaking apart. And here's a small section next to a really large section, right? Next to a small section, next to a really large section. Medium-sized section here, right? Medium-sized, smaller size, triangular building. Different sizes, different shapes. There's no squares here. Why? For earthquake mitigation. They wanted this structure to last. So these were all presumably fitted together quite well. Now they're off a little bit. They're coming down. They're being perturbed. These look like they're virtually in the right place, but then here you can see that they're starting to come apart. This seam is opening. Seam, not crack, not fracture. See, the geologist wants you to think that this material is fracturing apart, but we don't see cracks and fractures in the interior of the sections. None, zero, okay? I'm gonna go really slow for the geologist, which I always do. No cracks, no fractures, no cracks, no fractures. Only at the ending of the sections do we find a line. And then the geologist say, well, that's the fracture. And you go, well, is it? This one looks rather irregular. And the geologist could say, yeah, it's irregular. You know, it's a fracture. It just happened that way. But then we look at the other section faces. And we say, yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure. This looks like construction to me. A gentle curve. A gentle curve to the left. This is not a fracture. All right, and here's a quick curve, and then a virtually straight line. Really good for earthquake mitigation. You've got a section that matches that geometry on the other side. That's going to resist earthquake kinetic energy really well, just as building with small and large sections and different size and different shape sections does. The geologist will say that this is a crack. Is it? They'll say this is a crack. Really? Or, if you're a really smart race or group of races and you want something to last, you're going to build it out of crystalline concrete material, and you're going to use asymmetrical sectioning. They're going to put curves in it, just like this. These sections were presumably right next to each other. Just like these are virtually right next to each other. There's a little bit of a gap now, right? But this gap is probably due to time. And these were probably touching each other. Right here, they're probably touching instead of having a hand's width between them. But you can see the regular quality of the interior faces. A nice regular curve here. Not a fracture, looking for weaknesses in the material, and then it curves the other way. It's beautiful. It's absolutely stunning. Here you can see the regular quality of the sides of these sections. Even though time has perturbed these sections, so it's slowly coming apart. But right here, the sections are perfectly flush. So on the left side of the section on the right, we have perfect flush meeting point with the section on its left. On the right side of this section on the right is fallen down. Here we see that the true ancients who built this dome complex out of pink crystalline concrete undercut their section face. Super strong building. This one's the same way. Geologists would say, oh, it just happened that way. It's just a crack. Really? Through igneous material. A straight line through igneous material. Interesting. How's that happening? How are these gentle curves happening in igneous, natural igneous material? Igneous material is chaotic. So what we see consistently is building, asymmetrical sectioning. How do you make endlessly different crystalline concrete sections? How do you make endlessly different blocks? Well, you introduce curves. You introduce triangulation. So it's going toward being a triangle, a lot smaller on the downward end. And this one's small here and gets bigger at that end. It's two triangles next to each other, super strong building. And this one's got such a beautiful curve to it, and then here's another one with a beautiful curve to it, asymmetrical sectioning for earthquake mitigation. Nothing could be more obvious. I don't know what the geologists are looking at when they come to study this area. I'm guessing they're not looking at the endless straight lines. I'm guessing that the geologists are not looking at the endless straight line construction. And this straight line on the right, well, I mean, we see that way down there, we have another straight line that in the same spot, and next to it is another straight line right there, and that comes up. And the geologists have no explanation for that, but they just walk past it and go, oh, it just happened that way. Oh, okay, but that's not a theory. Your theory has to explain what is seen. So, I'm going to talk a little bit about the veil of geology. When geologists come upon straight lines like this in igneous material, what do they see? Well, they have to see cracks and fractures because that's their only recourse. But the sections themselves are not cracked or fractured. There's no weaknesses in the sections themselves. Only where the sections end is there a line. So every section is integral. There's no cracks or no fractures in this little triangle. Perfect for earthquake mitigation, by the way. Somehow nature did that? Oh, okay. Somehow nature made that? Interesting. Look at that curving seam, perfect for earthquake mitigation. Because when the kinetic energy of an earthquake comes along, this side rubs against this side, and you see, it's not slipping, it's staying strong. Now, we do have quite a bit of straight line building. It's really, 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 really straight. But it's mixed with curves. So, let's talk about the geological veil. When geologists and all earth sciences academics go out on the terrain all across the world and look at the material, they are not seeing the material. What does that mean? There is a filter between them and the terrain. Academics and anyone who's gone through schooling that includes a geology class, we've all gone through this training. And breaking out of it is not a simple matter. So I spent 23 months in the Bosnian Pyramid Complex, and on month 17 I said, I wonder if the riverbed's built as the foundation for the pyramids and hills on either side of the riverbed. And it turned out that the riverbed was built in the same way and out of the same material that the pyramid of the sun was built and that the pyramid of the moon was built, alternating hard and soft clay layers for earthquake mitigation again. And then I followed the riverbed out trying to find an end to the building. Where does this complex start? And I couldn't find an end to the building. So once you see the way they built late stage pyramids, in other words, the continent builders came back and did a repair job in Bosnia 34,000 years ago. once you see how they did it, once you see how they built the landscape with pyramid-like structures, then you can see it everywhere. Then you see the straight line vertical construction and the alternating hard and soft layers, which I've documented throughout Texas. Alternating hard and soft gypsum. It's a different material, but it's the same style of building, the same technique. When geologists look at these straight lines and these regular sided sections, they're not actually seeing the material. They're only seeing what they've been told. We can call this a geological veil. We can call this a geological filter. And the filter says those are cracks in natural material. That's what the filter tells them. So they're not looking at the material, they're looking at the filter. Triangular building, perfect for earthquake mitigation. Very strong. And these have stayed together for millennia. Who knows how many years this has been here. And it's only now just barely coming apart a little bit. But all the sections are still there. They're just coming open a little bit. So a geologist ignores the fact that these sections have no cracks or fractures in them. They're totally integral, totally strong, right? Here's something that they might see, look at as a crack or a fracture, and I think that's legitimate, yeah. There's a little crack, a couple little cracks in this one, but by and large, the rest of the section is completely strong. This section, no cracks or fractures, okay? The only place we see lines is at the ends of the sections. The geologist says, well, I have no choice but to call these lines, whether they're straight or curving, or whether the sections are triangular or some other shape. I have to call these lines cracks and fractures. Now they oftentimes will call a line that demarcates two sections, we'll call that line a joint fracture because it's clearly joining the material together. But they have to also call it a fracture because if they called it a joint, we'd know it was built. See, this is really, really good right here. This is excellent earthquake mitigating building. So the line is essentially straight, then there's a little curve right there, which is great to keep these sections together. And then there's a really major curve right there, the less curve right there. So that's great earthquake mitigating construction. So even though you have the straight line seams between sections, the straight line demarcations between sections, you also have the curving ones. So you say, well, how come these are coming apart though? Because those aren't right together. Well, it's because they were meant, these slabs and the megaliths we've seen in previous videos in this series, megaliths like these, were all meant to slide down. Otherwise they would have been attached, but they're not attached. You see? They're just sitting on the dome. They're just sitting there and then eventually they tumble down. So these are all meant to come down. They weren't meant to stay together forever. They're meant to come down. That's why this is slowly opening apart. But then you go, why? Why are these meant to come down? It must be because they're revealing the dome. And then you have to ask yourself, what is it about the dome that needs revealing? It's late afternoon. We still have some nice light. So there's the bare dome. There is what might be called exfoliation of those rather flat slabs. It does look like you could say, hey, that's exfoliation. Except that we know that all these slabs are artificial. So we know that that's not a natural exfoliation. That's just the true ancients who built this dome said, we want these to slowly come apart. That's how we're going to build these. There's another beautiful curving joint. Another curving seam between two sections. Beautiful, absolutely beautiful. It's really sad that the geologists can't see that beauty because of the filter that academia has given them. Let's say you're a videographer and you're offered a filter that is supposed to be clear, but which has Vaseline smeared on it. And your friend who offers it to you says, here's the filter for your camera. This will be great. And you say, but I can't see anything through it. It's all smeared and everything's blurry when I put it on the camera. It's just blurry. So how is that helping me? And your friend says, well, this is what you're going to see now. That's what you see now. This, for the rest of your life, you're going to have this over your camera lens. This is your filter. It's a blur filter, and it's really, really good. It's really good for you. It's wonderful. And you go, oh, okay. So that's it, huh? That's what's happening? Yeah, that's what's happening. So when we take geology class, we are told that the continents and the Earth herself came into existence through natural forces. The premise, the false premise at the base of this thinking is that we are the first advanced race in the universe. We know we didn't build the continents. We know we didn't build the Earth. Therefore, because we're the first advanced race, the first race to achieve high technology, everything we see in the natural world must have come into existence through natural forces. When I say natural world, I mean not just the terrain of the continents, not just the Earth, but space sciences, life sciences, earth sciences, all have this false premise at the base of their thinking. And that false premise, again, is that we are the first advanced race in the universe. And because we know we're the first advanced race, when we look through a telescope as an astronomer, we know that the planets out there, the suns, space itself, are all natural. They came into existence through natural forces because we didn't build them. We know that. So it's the premise that's the problem. It's the same in life sciences. We look through our field binoculars at animals on the desert plains and we see natural objects. Now they may be natural objects. They may have come into existence through natural forces. But we are not able to gather evidence for one theory or the other. Did they come into existence through artifice, or did they come into existence naturally, or through a combination of both? And why aren't we able to gather evidence for those theories? Because we know, without any doubt, that they came into existence through natural forces, all life forms. So if you're a microbiologist, you're looking at cells through your microscope, and you know that those came into existence through natural forces. Because we're the first advanced race in the universe, we didn't create the microorganisms. So this is the problem. Our minds are not open. We have a filter, a blurry filter in space sciences, life sciences, earth sciences, across our vision. And that filter does not allow us to ask a simple question. That question is what I'm looking at natural or artificial? If we can ask that question, then we can gather evidence for one theory or the other. We can say, well, here's some evidence. There's a straight line. There's a vertical straight line in igneous material. That's weird. Why is there a virtually straight line in igneous material? And there's another one. Why is this vertically structured? What are these vertical lines doing in igneous material? If this came into existence chaotically, why do they have regular sides? Why are they stacked? How does granite, natural granite, igneous rock, stack itself? If we were allowed by the academic filter to ask the question, is what I'm looking at natural or artificial? Then we would be in a better position as scientists. But the filter, the blurry lens across our vision, does not allow us to ask that question. We're not allowed to ask, is what I'm looking at natural or artificial, because we know it's natural. We know it. We, meaning those who stay in the academic paradigm, in earth sciences, in life sciences, and in space sciences. So we come along and we look at this and we go, oh, looks like erosion. Looks like cracking and erosion, and the water sculpted that. So they have to come up with mechanisms to explain everything that they see. Natural mechanisms. And you say, well, yeah, the water came along here for sure. You can see that it did. The evidence is there. But then when you look close, you go, oh my God, it's a seam between two sections. You can see it. See the seam? See, the geologists won't look at that. They can't. They cannot see it. The geologists cannot see that seam between two sections. Why? Because there's a filter over their eyes. Gooey with Vaseline. It's called the academic filter. See that seam? And they'll go, oh, that's just a crack. Is it? You're saying it's cracking apart? Really? Because it's clearly not cracking apart. So why would you say it's cracking apart when it's obviously holding together very strongly? Holding together. See how it's holding together? Not breaking apart. See how it's holding together? Geologists cannot see that. They cannot see that. Why? Because of the lens, the geological lens, the geological filter across their vision. And there's another nice seam between two sections of obviously artificial concrete. I mean, it's clearly built. This whole dome complex is 50 square miles of domes, crystalline outcroppings of pink, quote, natural granite. All we see is straight line seams between massive sections that have no other cracks in them. Here's one that does a dog leg. Let's go really slow for the geologists. Doo-doo-doo. See that dog leg? Gorgeous. Let's take a look at that dog leg. Nice, right? So I'm making this video to help those who want to break out of the academic paradigm to see the building. Now, it's obviously built, but I never would have seen it if I hadn't gone to the Bosnian pyramids. I just would have said, oh wow, it's amazing. Look at those beautiful blocks. I would never have questioned it. But that's what we have to do. We have to question. Look at this beautiful earthquake mitigating joining place between two sections. My God, really good. Really, really good, strong earthquake mitigation. Gorgeous. Absolutely gorgeous. Very efficient. This is Jock Doubleday reporting from Enchanted Rock State Natural Area here in the heart of Texas. I hope everyone has a scientific day, and I hope that we can all allow ourselves to ask a very simple question when we go out into the field on the continents here on Terra, or when we look through a telescope at the night sky, or when we look through a microscope at microorganisms. Is what I'm looking at natural or artificial? Then we can gather evidence for both theories and see which one does better, see which one is more compelling. When we set aside the academic filter, the filter of geology, then we can truly see Terra's terrain.